All right, and here we go. So, good morning. Today, as y'all can see on the paper, we are talking about the quadratic formula, okay? And before we start, I'm going to be real honest with you about this. This is probably going to be one of the hardest things we've done all year, okay? And it's also, it's hard because it's one of those things that it's hard to explain through a video, okay? Like, I'm going to try my best, but it's going to look complicated, but don't panic about it. Just kind of try to follow along with my steps, okay? So the quadratic formula is another way to solve quadratic equations, okay? So the key thing to know about the quadratic formula is that it can find, so the quadratic formula can find solutions to any quadratic equation, okay? Any quadratic equation. That's why we use it, because it will work 100% of the time, okay? There is not a quadratic equation that the quadratic formula cannot help us solve, okay? And I'm going to show you like exactly why that is, okay? So the quadratic formula, it's going to look intimidating, just kind of bear with me, okay? So the quadratic formula is x equals negative parentheses b plus or minus, and we'll get to that, the square root of parentheses b squared minus 4ac all over 2a, okay? Now, this looks very intimidating. But just don't worry about it yet. We will go step by step and I'll explain what this is, okay? So hopefully one part of this looks familiar, and that should be this part under the square root sign. If you remember from the video that I did yesterday, this is the discriminant, okay? And this is gonna come into play because we already know how to calculate the discriminant. So, I spelled it wrong. Discriminant, okay? So we already know how to calculate this part, so we just need to put it all together, okay? So again, don't panic about this yet. Just relax, just wait. We're going to just go straight into an example. We're going to use this quadratic formula to solve quadratic equations, okay? So let's get started. We're only going to do 2 examples because again, it's a long process. So example 1, we're going to use 2x squared minus 8x minus 24 equals 0. Okay, and that's a square, my bad. 2x squared. Okay? So, just like yesterday, we're going to start it off the same way, okay? We're going to find our A, we're going to find our B, and we're going to find our C, okay? That is the exact same thing. Those are the only 3 letters that we need. Those are the only 3 letters we have, okay? So A, remember, that's what's in front of the x squared. So my A in this equation is 2, right? Okay, now my B is whatever's in front of the plain x value. So here I have negative 8, right? Easy so far. C is the constant. Make sure you get the sign. Negative 24, okay? Easy. We can do the A, B, and C like nothing. We got it, okay? Now, this is where it gets tricky. We're going to plug everything in to this quadratic formula, okay? So watch what I'm going to do. So I'm going to start with x equals, okay? Because that's what we're looking for, right? We're looking for solutions. So x equals. Now, the negative sign is always going to stay in the front. So I'm going to write minus, okay? And then in parentheses, I'm going to put my b value. So instead of b, I'm going to put negative 8. So I'm going to put parentheses negative 8. Okay, and I know there's 2 negative signs, but we'll take care of that later. Okay, then I have plus or minus. That stays the same, right? That's not changing. That's not a letter we can change. Okay, the square root, I also can't change that. So I'm going to leave that just as it is. Okay, so I'm following along. Now I have parentheses b squared. So in the parentheses, in the radical, I'm going to put parentheses negative 8 squared, right? Because it's b squared. So parentheses, negative 8 squared, okay? I'm following along. So I just did the b squared part. Now I have minus 4. So remember, just like yesterday, that stays the same. And then I have parentheses a. So my a is 2. So parentheses 2. And then parentheses c. So parentheses negative 24. Close. Okay? So that is done. My top row is done, right? I have this whole part filled out. This whole part is filled out, okay? Now, I put the fraction sign, so I put the big fraction bar, just like up here, and then I put 2, and then parentheses a. So parentheses, another 2. Okay? Just like that, okay? I know that looks like a lot, but just keep going. Just keep following along, okay? Try your best. So, going down, okay? I'm gonna need more paper. What we're going to work on first is we're going to work on this top row first, okay? So first thing on this left side, right? So I'm going to start with x equals again. X equals, okay? Now, what is negative or minus negative 8, right? If I have two negatives, it turns into a positive is what you should say. So minus negative 8 turns into a positive 8, okay? So this is all taken care of. We just rewrite it as 8, okay? Now I have plus or minus. We're going to leave that for now. Plus or minus stays there, okay? So does the square root sign. We're going to leave that for now. What we are going to take care of is the discriminant. We're going to do this just like we did it yesterday, okay? So we're going to go piece by piece. So negative 8 squared. That's negative 8 times negative 8, which gives me positive 64. You could put all this in the calculator if you want to, okay? On the right side, I have negative 24 times 2. That gives me negative 48 times a negative 4, okay? If you have a calculator, that would be kind of helpful. It ends up being a positive 192, okay? Don't freak out about this now. It's okay. We can do this, okay? And then all of that over, we're still going to leave the denominator like that. So 2 parentheses 2, okay? Are we good so far? All I did is I took care of the first row, okay? That's all I did. Now we're going to take care of the bottom row on the next step. If you wanted to skip ahead, I don't recommend that right now. Just kind of go step by step, okay? So next, x equals, okay? The top row is going to stay exactly the same. Except now we can combine this, okay? So I have 8 plus or minus the square root. We can take care of this, right? What's 64 plus 192? If you have a calculator, 256. Over 2 times 2 is now 4, okay? So it's getting smaller and smaller as I get down, if you can see that. I have x equals 8 plus or minus square root of 256 over 4. Remember, we started from this up here, and it's getting smaller and smaller, and it's going to keep getting smaller, okay? So let's slide down. I'm going to have to get another paper. Okay? So, let's keep going. So now what I can do is I can find the square root of 256. So I have x equals 8, right? Can't do anything with that. Plus or minus the square root of 256, if you have a calculator, or if you just know it, the square root of 256 is actually 16. So now I have 16 and then over 4. Okay, that's all I can do. 8 plus or minus 16 over 4. Okay, so it's getting smaller again. Now this is what I'm going to do. Now we're going to deal with this plus or minus step. Okay, so watch what I'm going to do here. I'm going to break it into two separate x values, or two separate kind of problems. So on the left side, I'm going to break it off into x equals 8 plus 16 over 4. And the second one, I'm going to break it off to x equals 8 minus 16 over 4. You see how I did that? Because I had plus or minus, I can break it off into two problems. So I'm going to have two x's, right? I'm going to have two solutions. That's what I should have, okay? So now let's keep going. So now 8 plus 16 over 4, right? So what's 8 plus 16? So I have x equals 24. Wow, messed up there. 24 over 4. Okay, so 8 plus 16 is 24, right? So I have 24 over 4. Okay, on the right side, 8 minus 16 is negative 8 over 4. Okay, then we just put these in the calculator and reduce it. Okay, so 24 divided by 4, x equals 6. Okay, negative 8 divided by 4, x equals negative 2. Okay, so my solutions are x equals 6 and x equals negative 2. Okay, those are the solutions to this quadratic equation right here using the quadratic formula. Okay, that is a lot of information. I know that. Okay, so what you can do is to check your work to make sure you did it right, you can use the calculator. Okay, so you go to GeoGebra or Desmos, whatever you want, and you can just type in this quadratic, right? This is to check our work. Let me go back up here. So I can type in, 2x squared minus 8x, minus 24. Okay? And we kind of zoom out, and I can find that my zeros are, look, negative 2, right? That's one of my solutions. If I can get the other page. Right? Negative 2, that's one of my solutions. And the other one is 6. So x equals 6 and x equals negative 2. Okay? The calculator, I know that the calculator is a lot easier. It just tells you automatically, okay? But eventually, once you get to like algebra 2 and more complicated maths, you will have to be able to kind of go through this whole process, okay? I know it's intimidating now. I know it's hard since we're not in school, but just give it a shot, okay? I'm gonna do one more example, and I'm gonna keep it all on one page so it makes sense, okay? So this is example 2. This is the last one for today. So example 2, we're going to do x squared plus 5x minus 14 equals 0. Okay? This is our second example. Last one we're going to do. So, again, first things first, A, B, C, right? So, A, what color did I use last time? We used blue. A, B is orange, so there's B. And then C was like purple. Yeah. C. Okay, so easy part right here. A, B, C. My A is what's in front of the x squared. 1. My B, what's in front of the x, positive 5. And my C is what's in the back. Make sure you get the sign, negative 14. Boom, boom, boom. Okay? Now, I'm going to write out the quadratic formula and so we can kind of see and use it. Okay? So, the quadratic formula, I have it memorized. You do not have to memorize this by any means. Okay? I just have it memorized because I've been doing this for like ever. So, I get x equals minus parentheses b plus or minus square root parentheses b squared minus 4ac all over 2 parentheses a. Okay? That's the quadratic formula. The more you use it, the less intimidating it gets. Okay? So let's plug stuff in. X equals, always, right? X equals, always start with that. Minus sign, always stays there. Now parentheses b. So my b is 5, so parentheses 5, right? Plus or minus stays the same. Square root stays the same. Parentheses b squared. So parentheses 5 squared, okay? Hopefully you kind of see that the only thing we're really changing is the a, b, and c, right? That's the only thing we're changing from this original formula, okay? And then minus 4 stays the same, right? Just like yesterday with the discriminant. Parentheses a, so I have parentheses 1. And then parentheses c, so I have parentheses negative 14, okay? And then all of this over 2a, right? So 2 parentheses 1, okay? Now, let's do what we can. Let's do the top row, okay? So on the top row, right, I have x equals minus 5, right? So that's just a regular negative 5. I don't have to it doesn't turn into a positive because it's a minus 5, okay? So I have negative 5 plus or minus, that stays the same. The square root, that stays the same, but the inside we're gonna mess with right now, okay? So 5 squared, 5 times 5, 25, right? So 25, and then we gotta multiply on this side. So negative 14 times 1 is negative 14. Negative 14 times negative 4 gives me a positive 56. If you want to use the calculator for all this, I recommend that, okay? Because it can get a little tricky. And then all of this, we can do this real quick, right? 2 times 1, that's just 2. So we just leave it as 2, okay? Now, we're going to simplify what's underneath the radical, underneath the square root, okay? So let's do that. So I have x equals, I know this is a lot of writing, but it's, I don't know, after a while it gets kind of fun. I think it's fun. So x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root. 25 plus 56 gives me 81 all over 2. Okay? Now again, we got to simplify the radical. We had to simplify the square root of 81. So I get x equals negative 5 plus or minus the square root of 81 is 9 all over 2. Okay? Now I got to deal with this plus or minus. So I got to break it off. So I'm going to break one off here. I'm going to break one off over here. Okay? So the first one, I have x equals negative 5 plus 9 over 2. And on the right side, I'm going to have x equals negative 5 minus 9 over 2. Okay? So on the left side, right? Let's start with the top row. So I have x equals negative 5 plus 9. What's negative 5 plus 9? I get x equals 4 over 2. Okay? On the right side, I get x equals negative 5 minus 9, so negative 14 over 2. Okay? And then we just reduce. So 4 over 2 gives me positive 2. Negative 14 divided by 2 gives me negative 7. Okay? So my final answer, my solutions are, so I'm going to write it over here. So let me use a different color. I'll use green. So the solutions are x equals 2 and x equals negative 7, right? Those are my two solutions, okay? That is a whole lot of work, okay? I know that. I am aware of that, okay? But I really want y'all to at least give it a shot, okay? So again, this is the easy way to check your work, right? Or if you're just completely clueless, then try it on the calculator, okay? But I really want you to try the quadratic formula. So let's try it, right? Our answers are x equals 2 and x equals negative 7. So let me pull out my calculator. So here we go. Oh, let me get a new one. There we go. Okay. So x squared plus 5x minus 14. Okay. So my solution should be x equals 2, which is, if I can click it, there we go, 2, 0. So that's good on that one. And then the other one should be negative 7. So we're good on that one, negative 7, okay? So we did it right. I did it right, okay? So again, this is the quadratic formula, all of these steps, okay? I am going to post these notes, but it just takes practice, okay? And you might mess up and you might screw up big time, and it happens, okay? It happened to me when I was learning. It's okay. Just, I really want you to try this. If you have questions, let me know. Just go step by step, okay? And I know this is going to be tough because I can't help you out step by step, but just try, okay? So y'all have a good day and do your best, okay? Don't just give up. Do your best.